Yo, what is up guys? It's me, Exactly, back with another video. We got 6 games of NBA action to go over today, so let's not waste any time. Let's just get right into it. One of my favorite players to watch in the NBA has to be Anthony Davis. Watching Davis play really causes you to think and ask yourself, how is it even possible for him to do what he does? And then I remember that the guy is literally the same exact age as me. And after remembering that, I go and look myself in the mirror and ask the simple question, where the heck did I go wrong? But anyways, that's a completely different topic for a video that I'm never going to make. That's not at all related to what I gotta talk about today. Like I was saying, watching Anthony Davis play the game of basketball is great. You have to love watching the great players play. But the thing is, as you're watching Anthony Davis play, you kinda have to watch everyone else on his team play too. And that is where the experience of watching a Pelicans game can turn pretty sour. As the Pelicans, well, they have never been known as the most talented team in the NBA. We'll just put it like that. Now, that's not to say that Anthony Davis is the only good player on his team. Of course not. Jrue Holiday is awesome. Mirotic is one of the best stretch bigs in the league, and Julius Randle is about to play himself into a pretty nice contract, I'd imagine. And even Etuan Moore, while I think the best role for him would be instant firepower and shooting off the bench, you know, having him as a starter isn't the absolute worst. But then you get into the other guys, players like Wesley Johnson, who might qualify as the worst starting player in the NBA currently, along with Solomon Hill, Ian Clark, Tim Frazier. And you start watching those guys play, and all of a sudden you find yourself wishing that you could see AD play on a team with a more developed, seasoned, better supporting cast. And that's why we're constantly seeing Anthony Davis' name popping up in trade rumors, with the thought of him being traded to teams like LA or Boston, or just any number of teams that Anthony Davis could go to and immediately make them the favorites to win the NBA championship. So that's the typical stuff that we always hear about Anthony Davis and the New Orleans Pelicans. In today's video though, I don't feel like talking about the typical things we talk about when we talk about the New Orleans Pelicans and Anthony Davis. I don't want to talk about the Pelicans trading away Anthony Davis. Instead, I want to take a look at what the Pelicans might be able to do in order to keep Anthony Davis long term. And not just the Pelicans, but I have a few trade ideas for a couple of other teams as well that they should look to make. Now, full disclosure, none of these trades are going to be season altering trades, franchise altering trades that all of a sudden make these teams championship contenders. No, these are more realistic trades that can kind of help push the team in a right direction. The first trade we're going to be talking about today involves Anthony Davis and the New Orleans Pelicans. That is the thought of the Pelicans trading for Otto Porter Jr. And this idea came from a video that I made not too long ago when we got reports saying that the Pelicans may be considering making a move for Porter Jr. And here's the thing, Otto Porter Jr. could be exactly what the Pelicans need. Like I said before, right now, New Orleans is starting Wesley Johnson at small forward. Probably one of, if not the worst starting small forward in the NBA currently. And as bad as it sounds to say, Wesley Johnson is just a very poor man's version of Otto Porter Jr. minus any type of upside. And the Pelicans should jump at the chance to trade for Porter Jr. right now, considering the Wizards are in a state of disarray and Porter Jr.'s trade value is as low as it's ever going to be. See, last season, when John Wall missed a significant amount of time due to a knee injury, Otto Porter Jr. was playing the best basketball of his career and looked like a player who warranted getting paid the $100+ million contract that he had. During the month of February last year when Wall was out, Porter Jr. was averaging 19 points and 7 rebounds per game while shooting the ball over 50% from the field and 40% from three, while at the same time still playing some pretty good defense. That's the type of guy that New Orleans could really use, and I have no doubt that's the type of guy they would get in Otto Porter Jr. if you were playing alongside Anthony Davis. He would be a great fit for this team. The next team that we have to talk about though is the Phoenix Suns. Oh, clearly there's no move they can make outside of trading for a top 5 talent in the league that could turn their season around right now. So this trade for sure wouldn't work any miracles for Phoenix. But that being said, we all know that Phoenix could really use a point guard. And yes, it is ironic that the team that once seemingly had no good players except point guards now doesn't have a point guard at all. And look, there really is no point to the Suns just trading for a point guard just for the heck of it. I'm sure they could easily land a veteran like George Hill in a trade, but in the long run, what does that even accomplish? He wouldn't be a long-term piece for them moving forward, and he doesn't bring anything to the table this season that necessarily helps them out, especially now since the best thing they can do is just keep losing to get yet another high draft pick. So it wouldn't make sense for them to give up anything at all for a player like George Hill, who isn't going to do anything for the organization. And that is where things get complicated for Phoenix, because we all know that the Suns need and want a young point guard, but those aren't exactly very easy to come by via trade. So while they could just tough it out for the season and hope to find their point guard of the future via the NBA draft, there are a couple of players that it would make sense for the Suns to pursue via trade right now. And the first option is Terry Rozier, as almost no one expects Rozier to remain with the Celtics after this season, as he will most likely get an offer from another team once he hits restricted free agency this summer that the Celtics won't want to match. And not only that, but it's been known that Rozier would like to have a team of his own and doesn't want to play backup to Irving his entire career, which is why most people expect the Celtics to trade him at some point this year. And the Suns will, or should at least, be one of the teams that the Celtics try to work out a deal with. Another player that the Suns could go after though is Spencer Dinwiddie, and that is because the Brooklyn Nets, kind of like the Celtics, are also about to be in a tough situation this summer, as they would have to pay not only Spencer Dinwiddie but D'Angelo Russell as well. And for the Nets, it just makes a lot more sense for them to keep Russell, I'd imagine, as he will only be a restricted free agent this summer, meaning that as long as they're willing to pay D'Angelo Russell what every other team is willing to pay D'Angelo Russell, they will get to keep D'Angelo Russell. Spencer Dinwiddie, on the other hand, is about to be an unrestricted free agent, meaning that he can go wherever he wants and just gonna go to whatever team offers him the most money. And if you're the Brooklyn Nets, you're not going to want to get into a bidding war to keep Spencer Dinwiddie while at the same time offering a huge bag to D'Angelo Russell. That just would make no sense whatsoever. So the Nets should be open to the idea of trading away Spencer Dinwiddie. So I don't think it will be a terrible move for Phoenix to approach Brooklyn about a trade for Dinwiddie. But at the same time, I think about that and I say, the Suns could also just wait until free agency this year to offer Dinwiddie a contract. But the good thing about trading for him right now is, first off, Brooklyn Nets really can't demand much since he's a half-year rental. And second off, it would give the Phoenix Suns sort of a test run period to see how Dinwiddie looks in the backcourt with Devin Booker before offering him a long-term contract in the summer. And the last team I want to talk about today is the Charlotte Hornets. And that is because, well, Kemba Walker is staying in Charlotte. He has pretty much said it once again this year, as well as Michael Jordan coming on to say that he's hell-bent on keeping Kemba Walker after the season. So Kemba Walker is going to be staying with the Charlotte Hornets, and if that's the case, the very least the Hornets could do is try and put some actual talent around Kemba Walker. And as much as I would like to see the Hornets land a player like Bradley Beal or another big-name star player to play alongside Kemba Walker, that just isn't that realistic of a possibility, so it's not really worth mentioning. A player that I think is quite realistic though is Hassan Whiteside. And look, the Hornets trading for Hassan Whiteside isn't going to catapult them to atop the Eastern Conference, but trading for a player like Whiteside is at least a step in the right direction, especially if they can maybe find a way to move the contract of Nick Batum in the process. See, right now the Hornets have been using Willy Hernangomez as their starting center, and that's not gonna cut it in the NBA, especially if you're trying to make the playoffs. And off the bench, it doesn't get much better, as outside of Bismack Biyombo, who has been a quality big man since his days in Toronto, the Hornets don't got anybody else. And trading for Whiteside, if you're the Hornets, it just makes sense. He's a big man that can help you out on the glass, since they are one of the worst rebounding teams in the league right now. And he also gives them a big man to play in the pick and roll with Kemba Walker. And while Hassan White's contract is monstrous, making $25 million this year, and I'm sure he will opt into the $27 million that he's set to make next year as well, it's not necessarily like the Hornets can be picky over what talent they can actually get. At this point, they just need someone. Anyone, and Hassan Whiteside could work out well if you're the Charlotte Hornets. But that's it for that. Those are 3 realistic teams that I think can make pretty realistic trades this season. With that out the way though, now we can take a look at all the other games from last night. The Los Angeles Lakers advanced to 14-9 on the year after beating the Phoenix Suns 120-96. Phoenix did get out to a huge lead early on, but it didn't last long. And the situation was made even worse when Devin Booker had to leave the game early with a hamstring injury. And the Suns, look, while I do think that trading for an actual point guard like Dinwiddie or Terry Rozier would help out a lot, it's just, I thought this was going to be the year that they at least started to look like a better team, where they won more games than they had for the past 2 or 3 years. But so far, they might be in for the worst season that they've had so far. And that's discouraging, because they're about to get another top 5 pick in the draft, but at some point you have to ask yourself the question, exactly how much young talent does one team need before they start to turn things around? The Philadelphia 76ers win again. This time it came via a 103-95 win over the Grizzlies, and the Sixers are now 9-2 since they traded for Jimmy Butler. And I think once the buyout market takes effect, that the Sixers will be a destination that guys are really going to want to play for, because outside of needing a legit power forward, the only thing holding Philly back is their bench not being so great. And when I say not so great, I mean their bench isn't good at all. It's actually pretty terrible. Dennis Smith Jr. lost a tooth, but the Los Angeles Clippers lost the game as Dallas gets the 114-110 win. Patrick Beverley in this game though was a mess, as he was the guy who, quote, accidentally knocked out the tooth of Dennis Smith Jr. and then he also threw, well, kind of more like bounce past the ball into a fan sitting courtside who was heckling him. And I can understand how Beverley was feeling. When you're not playing well and your team is losing and the fan has been sitting there running his mouth the entire game, there's gonna come a time where you just have to say enough is enough, and I guess Beverley reached that point yesterday. And the Utah Jazz sadly continue to be sort of a disappointment this year. I mean, I guess maybe they might have just overachieved last year, and how they're playing right now is a more realistic representation of how good Utah really is, but I'm more optimistic than that, and I like to imagine that they will eventually get their act together and start playing well. They lost to Miami yesterday, the 102-100, as Rudy Gobert was whistled for the foul against Dwayne Wade with 3 seconds to go. And lastly, the San Antonio Spurs really needed this win, as if they would have lost, they would have fallen to 3 games below the 500 mark, so it was a good thing they didn't lose. 131-118 the final score, and this one is DeMar DeRozan dropped 36 points. And that is going to bring us to the player of the day, where you guys had the opportunity to vote for who you think was the best player in the league last night by clicking the little eye icon in the top right hand corner of the video. Just remember though, the only players whose team won are eligible to win player of the day. And yesterday, that player was none other than Gordon Hayward and his 30 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists. That is going to do it for today though, guys. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you did, then go ahead and subscribe to the channel with post notifications on so you don't miss out on more daily NBA videos. Thank you once again for watching though. You guys already know that you are the real MVPs, but until next time, I'm out of here. Peace!